Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that one of our admin gave to us, and it reads like this. Hello, how are you? Please post my story as anonymous. My story, it goes on like this. I am a man, and I want to tell you some of the dark secrets that I do have. Some of the people that I do mentor, they don't even know where I got my money from. All that they see is this big man who made money because he has a construction company, as well as having some cars that he uses for logistics. But I want to tell you, hard work alone is not going to give you a better start in life. You need connections and money. Before all of this money, before anything strange had happened in my life was simple, and I had recently came back from university, and I was finding it hard to get a job. So I worked transporting bodies between state hospitals, private clinics, as well as mortuaries. So this kind of a job, it is hard. My dad had worked in a mortuary in the government all of his life, and he had his other friends that had started their own funeral parlors. And he told me that whilst I was waiting to get a job, I was supposed to go and work there. So, brother, I went, and when a patient dies, especially after hours, the body has to be moved quickly and quietly because the families, they would have already started preparing for their funeral, so they would not want any delay in the time when they are grieving. As well as hospitals, they do not want to keep bodies in their buildings unnecessarily. If a body can be shifted to another mortuary, then they prefer for that to happen. I was hired through my father's friend, and he was a contractor, and I can say that this business, the way that he was running it, when a black man runs a business, you will just see that there is no organization at all. We did not even have a uniform. When we would go and collect bodies, just a reflective jacket, gloves, paperwork, and a van that we were using as well. So this was quite a challenge because the hours, they were always long. One would wake you up in the middle of the night, then you would be told to go and collect a dead body and to go and leave it at a certain mortuary. So usually that is when the real work comes after midnight. That's when the hospitals are the most quiet. Not much people moving around, and we would go and collect the dead bodies. And as for the pay was low. Monthly salary barely covered my rent because I had moved out and I was staying alone because I wanted some time with my girlfriend. So after moving out, I saw that the money that I was earning, it barely covered rent, groceries, and I had a baby mama as well. So I had a family to support. I was unable to get all of these things done using my salary. So whenever a cash job would come out, I would not even complain. Even the other guys that I was working with, they were always looking for these cash jobs, which I will tell you in a moment. Sometimes a family would want a body to be moved urgently. Paperwork was delayed, but the body could not wait. Or a private mortuary subcontracted would have delays with the papers. So you will be told, do this one tonight, we'll sort documents in the morning. Or the family, they will tell you that they will give you something if you speak with the boss, so that at least they can bury their deceased whilst the papers are getting sorted out. So usually you would make between 1,500 to 2,000 rands, sometimes more if it was far or late, because I would even transport these bodies to other provinces. So this money, it helped me to survive, and it helped me to keep food on the table. Of all the strange requests that I had gotten over the years when I was working at that company, there was one strange request. The boss also knew about this because he had already spoken with that family. When the call came, it came after midnight. So I was being told by those people that I was supposed to go and meet them up at this other hospital. So we used to go through our controller. I then said, okay, hold on. I knew that it was already too late for me to call the boss, but I wanted to call the controller before I had gotten out of bed. Then they said, before you do that, speak with your boss directly, or let us put him on the conference call. And I said, okay, it's fine. They then put my boss on the conference call, and then my boss told me that there was a body that I was supposed to collect that body from the hospital, but I was not going to take it straight to the mortuary where I was supposed to go with it. I said, okay, it's fine. I then got out of bed and went to my car, and I drove to the place where we were supposed to meet. And after the whole paperwork was done, I did not suspect anything, but these were Nigerians. I then asked the obvious question when I had finished signing off all the necessary paperwork at the hospital. I was looking at this other Nigerian man. He looked at the woman who was the wife, and then they said something that was shocking, because they said, follow us. They wanted us to leave the premises of the hospital. After we had left the premises of the hospital, we drove maybe for about 2 kilometers. Then they put some hazards on their vehicle and they parked by the side of the road. I also stopped, and they told me that I should continue following them, but we were not going to a mortuary that night. My brother, we drove around until we arrived in Senton, and we got into this other gated community. And when we arrived at that family house, this was something that was quite strange. Since these were Nigerians, I thought that maybe that is their culture. I really did not understand. What were they going to do with the body? So I thought that maybe they did not trust mortuaries and they were Muslim. Maybe they were going to prepare their own body for burial, but still it was not unusual and it was not illegal, since this was the body of a Nigerian. I did not even check the surnames, but everything was okay. There was nothing illegal. So that was the first job that I did. After they had directed me to reverse into the yard, into the garage, because they even removed one of the vehicle that was parked there. As for this house, it was a big mansion, like a big palace. It was extra large and it had high walls, cameras everywhere, and they had extra security. Even though they were inside a gated community, there was 2 Nigerian guys, those that were security but without uniform. So when we arrived there, they did something, like they walked around my buggy and then they told me to reverse into the garage, and I did so, and they told me to wait in the car. I waited 10 minutes past 20, 30, and then that was when one of the Nigerian men returned and knocked on the window, and he said, bring the body inside. I then did as I had been instructed to do, but I asked for help, and we carried the body through a door at the back of the house. We got outside of the garage, even though there was another door that led straight into the dining room, but they said that we were supposed to use another door. So we got out and we went around that big mansion with that heavy dead Nigerian, and we went to the back door and we entered into the house. As for the house, you could tell that these people, their religion, they were worshipping Muslim, and they gave me money and they instructed me that I was supposed to come back the next morning. I returned back the next morning, and my boss told us to go and assist those people for the burial, and they prepared their body, and we went to the cemetery. But I had been given money already. My boss even asked me if those people had given me money. This was quite strange. I do not want to lie to you. I think when my boss saw that I could do something like this, my boss kept on using me for this type of requests. One house that I will never forget, this was a house that belonged to a ZCC man. This man as well, he wanted to use a dead woman for rituals. That was the most hardest job that I had ever done in my entire life. When I was taken to that ZCC man's house, I found out that he was extremely wealthy. We sat down and he also gave me money, but he gave my boss even more money. Because of the money that was given to us, it was quite a lot. We went with the boss and we collected the dead body, but this was the body of someone that was not related to that man. He slept with a corpse, my brother. We got that body before we had gone with it to our funeral parlor. We passed through that house and we drove inside. We waited, and then he came out and he gave us an instruction to carry the body inside. We went with it upstairs and he directed us into this other very beautiful bedroom. Like, it had a beautiful bed, like it was a movie theater, but a bedroom. And then he told us to put that dead woman that we had collected from the mortuary. In the meantime, the relatives of that woman, they did not know. All that they knew was that their loved one was dead, and they had been told to contact our mortuary, and they had already done so. They thought that maybe the body was already at the mortuary, but they were busy with their own funeral preparations. Yet the body, when we were in transition, coming from the hospital, going to our parlor, we passed through that house so that the man can sleep first with that dead body. Then we go with the body to the mortuary because he was using it for rituals. The whole thing was supposed to be done within 30 minutes, but it took about an hour and a half because the sangoma that was supposed to be there took a little while, and he said that he had been stuck in traffic. I saw my boss sweating because he was panicking. He had taken this risk in broad daylight, so he was afraid that the documents that we had, the time that we had collected the dead body, if it happened that the family got suspicious and then they went to the funeral parlor and will suggest that they want to see their dead relative, maybe something would go wrong. He was so nervous. He only started to calm down after we were told that the sangoma was there. When we were preparing that dead body, my boss told me that the owner of the house wanted to sleep with that corpse. I nearly vomited. I had never imagined that someone can do something like that. The first thing that we did, we were given a black plastic that we were told to put on the bed before we had lifted that dead woman from the coffin. After that, then we lifted her up and we placed her on the bed, and we were told to leave the room after we had pulled up the dress that she was wearing. I did not even want to look because I knew what was about to happen. We were then told to go downstairs, and then the sangoma arrived. That was when I saw that my boss, he was no longer in panic mode like what I had seen him doing before we had been told that the sangoma was there. So they did their nonsense upstairs. When they were done, we saw the sangoma coming downstairs. He was holding a small clay pot, and then he just looked at us and he said thank you, and he went to his car. We were then called by the boss, and when we went upstairs, he was naked, my brother, and he had finished sleeping with that dead woman. We took that dead woman, put her back into the coffin, and then we went to the parlor. And when we arrived at the parlor, about 20 minutes later, that was when we heard that the family of the deceased, they were at the reception area. I felt my heart banging really fast across my chest because I was like, what if those people had came to the mortuary and then they would have contacted the hospital and then they are told that we have already collected the body, because it was not far where our parlor was. Like, we changed the route, taking a very long route instead of just coming to the mortuary where I was working. My girlfriend, when I told him about some of these things that were happening in my life, she was the one that suggested that the money that we were making, we were not supposed to eat it like the way that we were doing, but to save it. We started saving money. Then we started our first small business. I already loved construction. I then started to print out some flyers, and I did not even have any knowledge at all about building. I started giving some flyers. I became lucky because in our location, the people, they started to build back rooms that looked more nicer. And after I had given the flyers to the people, people started contacting me, asking me if I was able to make bricks. I had to find some Zim guys that I picked up, and I asked them, I picked them up by the robot, and they told me that they could. And I bought some shovels and I started working. And from there on, I looked for others that could do building, and they started working for my company. And it was one referral after the other until I got into the business in which I am right now, that I love, is having a restaurant as well as the construction. It is still running. Me and my girlfriend, we are still together, not yet married, but we have kids. Yo, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear brother. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world. Can you imagine? Instead of going to them, to their mortuary with that dead woman, they went to a certain house where some things were done that you do not expect people to do. Yo, those that do money rituals, they do not rest and they do not have peace. Imagine being rich and you sleep with a dead person. Tell me what you think in the comment section.